Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app and use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Wednesday. Luke Stuckmeyer here with you, and we have a special guest in studio. We always Cody Del Mendo down there, Ryan Herrera, and a press box wag told me that Gordon Wittenmyer was going to be here today, and there he is, longtime Cubs beat writer. Good to see you, Gordon.
Thanks for having me on. Did I miss something here? Am I supposed to have a laptop?
Well, you can have one if you want.
Or you just bring your intrinsic
We're not providing
knowledge.
one. That's what you're looking for.
It seems like a requirement.
No, you could do whatever you want.
Just bring your intrinsic knowledge.
I honestly only have it here
Cubs.
for when I have to do ad reads. That's
me that, too. And
I like to see the YouTube chat.
I'll just stick to what I have in here, and you can pretend.
Yeah, we'll just pretend it's coffee. So I mean, it's not like there's hardcore Cub stuff going on. There were some minor moves regarding bullpen arms and stuff like that. I guess the big thing is Eric Hosmer sounds like it's done. If you look at Marcus Stroman's Twitter, it is done. Stroman and Hosmer going back and forth. If you had to give that move a grade, what would you give it?
I'm like a C plus. Like C, it's not like a needle mover, but it's for the veteran minimum reportedly. So it's like at that point, it's just a move to fill the roster spot, bring in a good clubhouse guy, and go from there. It's not. He's not going to help you win the World Series. He's probably not going to make you lose one either. If he's on your team for that,
he might help you. To me, it's like taking one of those classes in school that's pass fail, because you might be miserable in this class, but if you can eke it out, you get a passing grade. Cool. It's nothing but upside. Like you said, it's minimum. Costs him nothing.
The Padres are paying his whole salary for three more years.
Yeah. So, I mean, good guy in the room, and a guy that recently did okay, and a guy that's got a pretty good glove over there.
Well, Cody, I don't know about you, but my first thought was if your decision is Rivas was going to be back playing at first base and with a platoon, maybe Mervis, whoever it might be, or Eric Hosmer, I don't see the downside to it. You look at Cubs Twitter and you will see a lot of angry people.
Why would you bring Rivas back if you're going to give Mervis a shot, though?
I wouldn't know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Mervis will ever get the shot this season. Sure seems like it. Yeah. But let's say that doesn't work out. Well, Hosmer's not the worst guy to have over there.
Yeah. I'm not against it. Like someone in the chat, RWB team says that I wasn't thrilled about getting Mancini, and now we get a Hosmer instead. I'm not thrilled about either of them. I'm just whatever about both of them. I don't think either of them really moved the needle. I think if the Cubs were going to make a big move at first base, they would have got Abreu, and they didn't. And they, don't talk to me about Anthony Rizzo. It's just whatever at this point, because you didn't get Abreu and you let Rizzo, you traded Rizzo, and you didn't try to bring him back. Then you're at a point where Mervis is a guy with high upside who broke out in the minor leagues last year. I think as a fan base, we all just want to see Mervis get the opportunity and hope and pray that it works out. Because if it doesn't, then we're just
But hope and pray is dangerous, right?
Yeah,
that's a dangerous way. If you're trying to get to the playoffs, hope and pray is dangerous.
That's most of franchise history, isn't it?
I'm just very whatever about that situation. They still need more offense, and that's what bothers me the most about it. I don't think either one of them were going to help really improve that.
It's not a
that's
huge
why I'm whatever
moving of the needle is what you're trying to
I like the move for this reason. If you're a Cubs fan, it's one of the handful of signals this winter that suggests they are trying, if incrementally, to put together a team that can win in 2023. This isn't he's not going to be a core guy. This isn't going to be whatever this team looks like in 23, a fraction of it's going to be around when and if they put together that next big competitive window. But they promised they were going to try to win in 2023, and a move like this suggests short-term deal, like Bellinger was a short-term deal. These kinds of moves aren't moves that a team's going to go out and do. If this was last year's team, why even bother? And Hosmer wouldn't take that deal if this was
That's
that
fair.
thinking.
Yeah,
that's
a year ago at that
fair.
point. Yeah. The way I look at it is I think the biggest thing that Eric Hosmer will provide to this ball club, and especially to a guy like Matt Mervis, is that veteran leadership, knows how to play first base, made a lot of money doing it in his career, and if he can bring that kind of insight, that knowledge, and help Mervis along. I think that's the whole point.
That
of
might be
bringing
the
in,
most valuable
that's
reason of all to have.
That's what I'm saying, and that might. That may be why they're bringing him in the first place. Obviously, we've talked about on this show is kind of bringing Matt Mervis along at his own pace, not just throwing him into the fire at first base and letting him sink or swim. It's bringing a guy who knows how to do it, who isn't going to block him long term, but can at least take off some of that pressure on him, and help this team win a couple more ball
What's
games.
the other thing we know about Mervis? He's not a great glove. He's
not a great glove, and he's not necessarily a contact guy, which also gives you a little.
What can Hosmer do the most for him that nobody else on the roster can? The footwork around first base, the preparation, just learning how to play the position well at the big league level.
Help groom him.
Yeah. Well, and that's and
again, that's fine.
When you mentioned Rivas earlier, like that was my thing. It's like if they were going to bring back Rivas solely because of the glove, because he hadn't hit very well this last year, but he was a good defender. But at this point, it's like I think Hosmer may bring a little more value as far as just he's the guy that's done it in the past. He knows how to do it.
Yeah,
so he probably just brings more value to you than what Rivas does. I mean, we still don't know what the move for Rivas is. He may end up back in the system as like some depth because he got DFA'd. But we haven't had any.
Did I see? I can't remember. I thought I saw something on him, but
as far as I remember, he hasn't been claimed or traded or anything since the DFA. But so if it ends up that way, he's back in the system. That's good first base depth for your the organization. But Hosmer,
he's okay. I mean,
Hosmer just brings value that
he's a lefty bat.
Yeah.
Put him in the wings at AAA, I guess.
Yeah.
I think at this point in Rivas' career, he's going to want an opportunity. He'll go play with some crappy team in Pittsburgh or something like that and try to get some at bats.
Yeah, I don't know how valid it was. I thought I saw yesterday somebody say that they were optimistic that he'd come back and take the AAA spot. But, I mean, I just don't think that's that relevant to the future of the team necessarily. Like you said, it's a backup plan in case you have injuries and all kinds of other things. I think the Hosmer I understand the Hosmer, it's just 1 year, possibly, and then you look at it. But I think the people that are angry about it for the two reasons Cody said. Number one, he's not Rizzo, so people are always going to be angry unless you have some star player coming in to replace him. And number two, they're still thinking about, that terrible deal, They're not paying that deal.
That's right. I think some people miss that. I think you're 100% right. I think a lot of people screaming are thinking, they're taking on a bad deal.
Or that they're doing it because it's the super cheap move. There's no big money move left at first base.
And by the way, if this guy didn't have a bad contract the last few years, would he be getting ripped as much?
No, that's what I'm saying.
He'd just be a good player.
That's part of it.
He'd be looked at as a good player.
Well, and then when
average to good for sure.
I remember early in the season last year, the talk was about the Cubs potentially trading for Hosmer, taking on the bad contract while getting like a good prospect or two in return. Yeah. And I think that kind of clouds people's judgment of this deal. It's like you're kind of still, I don't know for sure, but it's still thinking in that way of like you're taking on a bad deal, but you're not taking on a bad deal. You're bringing in a guy for however little you have to pay him.
And again, that's why to
if
me,
he makes the club, if he sticks, you can whack him anytime you want.
That's another thing. Yeah.
And again, and basically all that does is sum up why I feel the way I feel. It's fine. Like it's whatever. Like cool. Like you added an insurance policy for Matt Mervis, and if they do want to start him in AAA in April because you know how bad offenses in April are Wrigley, and bring him up in May, then I can deal with a month of consistently Eric Hosmer, I guess, fine. Like, again, like it's whatever. I just hope that Mervis works out, or else we're all going to be screaming about Anthony Rizzo for more years.
I think you're going to be happier with first base than you were last season. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'll say that much. I think if first base is fans' focus come May, this team has some. Well, it's probably really good. That's probably a really good sign, right? Because it means everything else is working.
Yep.
And probably means you're not scoring enough runs.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to be angry about a lot of stuff.
Where are they going to get their runs?
Well, he's not a power guy necessarily, obviously.
No.
And so that's another thing.
No, in a best case scenario, though, he's nice bat in there. But
yeah.
I just think you lost Contreras. Cody Bellinger's a coin flip.
That's what we talked about. And you were there when Jed's press conference in October, talking about adding more power, limiting randomness and scores, all that kind of stuff. And they haven't done a whole lot to address it. That's
at least from the outside looking in. At least,
As far as lineup construction, it's a lot of the same. I mean, Dansby Swanson may help replace what you lost in Contreras, but Cody, you said Cody Bellinger's a coin flip. Hosmer's probably not going to do it. And so is Morel going to take a step forward? There's a whole bunch of things that could go well in.
Is Nico Horner going to continue to rise?
Yeah.
Right.
Is Seiya Suzuki going to
I believe in Nico Horner.
I do too.
I think
we all do.
I think he'll be fine.
I mean, is Seiya going to hit for more power? This is all like things that are coin flips or question marks where Jed, he talked about, making the moves that are going to add more power to this lineup and didn't do a whole lot of that.
I think you have less big questions than you did last year. That's
true.
We went into last season thinking, well, if this goes well, you could see them having a better team. I think you found Nico, because you think you found Steele, you've added Stroman, you've added Tyone.
Okay, I would argue that there's at least as many questions this year, maybe more.
Do you think there's a chance they have a worse record this year than they did last year?
Of course there's a chance. There's a chance because of this. Look, when they started tearing down that roster, by the time they got to the end of this past season, if you want to just pull off of that roster, each guy you say is a bankable, proven, established major league player. Not even an all-star. Might have been 5 of them. Now, if you want to be generous, maybe there's 8 or 9 of them. But Steele's got to back it up. Suzuki's got to prove in his second year that the way he finished and the adjustments after a year in the United States pay off. Hap's got to back it up. He hasn't been consistent like he was in 2022 his entire career, and he's in a walk year that, depending on what they do with this contract, I really like what Nico did, and like I said, I believe in him, but he's a guy that's had trouble staying on the field, and he's got to back that up as well as the performance. Dansby Swanson had one breakout season. Now, I think he's going to be fine. There's a baseline to him. He's fine. He's really good. But is he Trey Turner? Is he a superstar shortstop? He could be a good shortstop with guys around.
I think at the very
Justin
least
Steele,
that he's a good everyday major league player.
129 innings for Justin Steele. We all love what we saw. But he hasn't even pitched 150 innings in a season.
Well, similar with Keegan.
Keegan Thompson,
was an
even
awesome
less.
reliever.
He has more to prove.
Yeah,
they don't have their Goldschmidt, their Arenado. They don't have those players.
When we talk about questions, we thought Marcus Stroman was not a question going into last year. And he wound up on the IL for a while. He wound up on the COVID list for a while. When he was healthy and pitched, he was good. We'd like to see that again. We think we're going to see that again, but he's got to do it.
He's got an opt-out year. He's got motivation.
And Kyle Hendricks.
Kyle's a bigger question mark a year later than he was a year ago.
We don't know if he's going to throw another pitch. Now, that might sound extreme, but I don't know that he started a throwing program yet. So, I mean, there's questions. There's now, if they stay healthy, this team that they put together should be better than last year. They should be a winning ball club. They should have a really good shot at second place, and maybe even compete in the division. Second place, on average, gets you a playoff berth in this league.
Right. They're in a bad division. I mean, that helps, but that should have helped last year.
40% of the league makes the playoffs.
Yes,
on average,
exactly.
that's second place.
Yeah.
No, it's tough. Like you listed off a lot of the guys who are probably the Cubs' best players, and even they're still question marks.
And they might be great. They might all be all-stars this year.
One or two good seasons in the major leagues doesn't make you an absolute yes the next season.
Yes.
It just doesn't. Well, look at Cody Bellinger. He went from MVP to a guy who's been below average. So
baseball is one of the toughest sports to predict that way. I mean, basketball player puts together 2 or 3 seasons, you kind of know what you got. Football player, you kind of know what you got. Baseball, man, the performances go up and down.
Gary wants us to get to Devers. We will get to Devers in the show, but Gary, you're going to have to wait for it. That's not where it's at in the rundown.
Yeah. We also got the super chat.
We did have a super chat. Hector wants to know, ain't Luke Voigt a better hitter than the other two?
Well, I got him up on Fangraphs. Gordon, I don't know if you're a fan of Fangraphs, but he's got a.
Ryan knows my position on metrics.
I've heard that you're a little bit. That's why
that website. I do.
Did
Believe
you?
it or
Okay.
not, contrary to
I became an analytics guy on May 17th.
Calls him Wittenmetrics.
He still uses B-War though. We're a
do.
F4. We're a F4 podcast, an F4 company. So
well, I'm out of here.
The press box wags are more in him than Gordon. I think.
Last season, Luke Voigt slash 226, 308, 402, 102 weighted runs created plus. 22 homers. I feel like all those came against the Cubs. Yeah, I mean, He was an average hitter. I mean, I don't think it's much better than Eric Hosmer or even Trey Mancini.
Yeah, I mean,
the guys that we've talked about.
He struck out 31.5% of the time.
Yeah.
So he's another guy that's gonna swing and miss a lot, but is also when he connects with the ball, probably hits it
Finished
pretty well.
with a 0.2 F4. I mean,
I think
if you're not going to go get Mancini,
yeah,
I like the Hosmer move.
yeah.
I think that there's probably like they're so close to each other that really arguing about it is just kind of semantics at this point. Like you're arguing one guy's better at hitting home runs versus another guy who's better at putting the ball in play versus another guy who might be better at defense. Like they're like the three of them are probably good players individually. I don't think one of them stands out as like a bigger needle mover than the other. So when you're just arguing, you're kind of just arguing to argue. If you're
What
doing
was
it.
all the nonsense about whether or not Hosmer's a good clubhouse guy going on?
Yeah.
That people were saying he's not a good guy, and then Marcus Stroman jumped in on it and started firing tweets. It was Bleacher Nation that said I keep seeing tweets about Hosmer being a bad clubhouse guy. I thought I remembered hearing he was a glue guy. What can you tell me about the culture? Then Stroman actually responded to Bleacher Nation basically saying anybody that's in a clubhouse doesn't know what they're talking about unless they're the player in the clubhouse. He said he's an unbelievable human being. Articles written by biased media members incorporating only their own perspective should never be seen as credible. It's known how the industry operates and feeds their gullible fan base.
You know what?
Yada.
I'm. That sounds like a shot at us by Stroman.
Yeah.
I'm gonna back him on that.
Yeah.
Because my take on this is that what I've heard about the guy, I've never covered the guy. What I've heard
Mark
about
Carmen
the
right
guy,
over there did cover him in Kansas City. He said, great guy.
There you go. So my take is that he's a good clubhouse guy. That's all I've heard about the guy, that he's good in the clubhouse. He's a strong presence in there. And I think some media members in some places have had issues with him, which to me is if the guys, let me put it this way, over the years, I've dealt with probably 1,000 players, and 99.9% of them, no issues with in terms of from my aspect.
Yeah.
Now, some of them have issues with me, and I wouldn't blame them. Like, I'm in their world, and
Right.
sometimes I write stuff they don't like, and I show up the next day and whatever, and if you don't like me, that's, hey, your prerogative. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to hold it against you on an MVP ballot, a Hall of Fame ballot, or in what I write. But sometimes guys are not good guys, and you see it behind the scenes, how they treat other people. But I suspect in this case, the guy's good in the room, and he's had issues with some media members who maybe bristle at that.
Maybe the ones in San Diego.
I would say globbing everybody into one group in any statement is generally not a great idea because not all media members have an agenda like that. As Mark Harmon just said, he was a great guy. So now we're not supposed to believe that because he's got an agenda.
Covered him in Kansas City, right?
Right.
So before he got the big contract that then was considered a bust. And so you're right that a guy's a bust, and like Jason Hayward handled that extraordinarily well. I mean, you could ask him straight up questions about that contract, and he was just such a stand-up dude. I don't know how Hosmer handled it. Yeah. Maybe he didn't like it. Maybe some guys.
A lot of it does feel like anecdotal evidence where specific situations cause a kind of outcome where there's issues between Hosmer and a media member, but that happens with everyone. Everyone in media has had some kind of situation with a player, and whether it got handled or not, like the way they felt about each other was different afterwards, right?
And by the way, you and I have talked about this with Tim about the way clubhouses were 20 and 30 years ago. There's not a media member on the planet that walks into a baseball clubhouse and should ever complain these days. It is an entirely different universe than it used to be. These guys are professionals when it comes to us too. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, whatever the guy might say or think or do, I don't know why.
I think I saw Hosmer replied to Marcus Stroman's tweet too. I guess they played together for Team USA or in the World
So that's
Baseball
why I said
Classic.
it's definitely a done deal.
Yeah.
Maybe the physical, which again, maybe that's not totally a done deal based on recent history in sports. But another super chat from Fernando saying CHGO crew are great clubhouse guys. Go Cubs.
I might be biased, but I agree.
I agree too.
See, I knew you had an
comment
agenda.
of the day right there.
Anyways, I didn't take too much out of that. I thought Stroman's response was interesting, and he always has an opinion to share on Twitter one way or another, because later he said people on Twitter, I think, are, did he say losers?
I think he said people who like
people aren't.
I don't want to say the wrong
anybody
thing.
on I can't. I don't either. Let me find it. Sir, do you have the Twitter one that he had? I've got it. Hold on. I'll tell you exactly what it said. I'll probably have to put it on my readers, but.
Okay, here we got it. Twitter is a bunch of people who've accomplished nothing in life, trying to give advice and debate on the lives of others. Very comical when you think about it. LOL, praying for you all.
Yeah. See, now that would be a general statement.
That is Luke's word.
Losers is definitely my word. That's why I didn't put quotes on that. But people who've accomplished absolutely nothing in life is pretty close to losers.
Yeah, I mean, we know Stroman's an opinionated person, and he feels he's not afraid to share his opinion, and we know that being in the clubhouse too. But especially on Twitter, he'll share whatever's on his mind. I give him a lot of credit too for he thinks about a lot of stuff pretty deeply. Yeah, I would say so.
And he what he sees on the surface a lot of times, sometimes he'll share in deeper thoughts on the subject that are more real world, and sometimes they get taken the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But you have a long talk with this guy, and you see where he's coming from.
Well, that's the danger of Twitter. Anytime you have a thought about something that's deep, about a deep content or a deep subject, putting it on Twitter and not being able to fully, no matter how long the thread goes.
We saw it on Monday night.
There are still a lot of ways for things to be misinterpreted other than a face-to-face conversation.
We saw it with a very big...
Face-to-face is a better way to do it.
A very big name in sports media who shall remain nameless. But it was, the tweet...
Skip Bayless?
Yes. Oh. Okay, it was supposed to rename. I mean, he thought he tweeted it one way, and basically the rest of the world took it a different way.
Yeah. Perhaps his Stroman's thoughts related to Kanye West.
Okay,
we're not kind of what we're
well,
getting
Stroman
at here.
said skip is trash. He did have a comment on that.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but that's part of what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and that's when I said that,
because
big brain right here.
Slammed for that.
Yeah, he got slammed. Yeah.
In my mind, unfairly, he got slammed by people that had never met him.
Yeah,
yeah.
And if you had met him, you would have taken what he said on those tweets in an entirely different context.
Which gives him the impression of what he's saying about Twitter.
Exactly.
Like,
that's where he's
been hurt by
right
Twitter.
That's when Gordon says back him up on that. I was like, it's kind of true. Like, Twitter is just a cesspool of people that just are spouting hot takes and opinions that don't result in consequences.
In general, I would say that, and then there's also people that are there doing very great things on Twitter, like great things. Joe Johnson's on Twitter.
Okay,
is he
obvious
like
Joe?
Obvious Joe? Is he obvious shirts Joe? Is he a bad guy? No.
No, you're right. You're right.
Right? There's
I
people
probably
doing
wouldn't
great
be here
things with
without
it too.
Twitter. So
It's just that what we see as the majority of it is nonsense.
All right.
All right. ComEd. The Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting, other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across their territory. Customers can inquire about how to upgrade outdated lighting to energy and money-saving efficient LEDs like the Cubs did at Wrigley. Learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through your mobile device, track your facility's energy usage, and more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor-outdoor lighting and networked lighting controls, making these projects more cost-effective than ever before. Visit ComEd.com/poweringbiz now to start saving money and energy. And to start a project, contact them at 1-855-433-2700. For more information, email businessee@comed.com or publicsectoree@comed.com.
Shady Rays. Gordo, I don't know if you wear sunglasses ever. I see you with your glasses on a lot, but if you ever need a pair of sunglasses, you ever get contacts, you want a pair of sunglasses to go on top of that, Shady Rays, awesome. Mm-hmm. Shady Rays never understood why sunglasses were so expensive, so they set out to change it. You don't have to break the bank for quality sunglasses this fall because our friends at Shady Rays have you covered. Shady Rays are premium polarized shades featuring world-class optical clarity, substantial durability, and styles catered to everyone and every lifestyle. The best part about Shady Rays, they have the most insane protection program in all of eyewear, lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your shades on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. You drop them in a lake, off a cliff, anything, they'll replace them. Even with that strong of a protection program, they still manage to make quality that I can tell you holding in my hand seems just as good as any expensive pair that I have ever worn. Shady Rays customers seem to agree with over 200,000 5-star reviews. Shady Rays also provides 10 meals to fight hunger in America with every order placed and have donated over 20 million meals to date. They stand behind their product and told our team that if anyone has a problem, they throw profit out the window and do what it takes to get it right. You get free returns and exchanges. You either love the Shades or Shady Rays will pay to ship them back. That's it. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is running their deepest deal of the season. Use code CHGO for 50% off 2 or more pairs at ShadyRays.com. Buy one, get one free. You can get 2 pairs for as low as $54. Redeem only at ShadyRays.com, where you can find all their newest and best shades. What we got?
Michael Collada says, thanks, Tom and ComEd, for the new light bulbs. Now I need Shady Rays for night games.
I feel like Michael Collada and Gordo would get along pretty well.
Yeah, they'd get along.
Oh, yeah, you guys would.
So
you'd
he's our resident Ricketts criticizer.
Yeah.
Where basically how you feel about the Cubs.
Why didn't you bring him on?
Maybe we
he's on every day. He's on every day, right on that chat.
He's in our chat.
So we're going to talk about Devers because everybody wants to talk about Devers. But in this block, real quick, yesterday we made bold predictions. We didn't want to make, mediocre predictions or mild predictions about the 23 Cubs. We each tried to come up with 3 bold predictions. So we're going to let Gordon grade us based on how bold it is. So if it's not bold, maybe you don't want to grade it as high. Like if it's just Nico Hoerner will have a good season. Is that bold? No, not really. If I say something, but then how realistic is the bold? So are you managing the boldness and the possibility of it actually happening? You tell us what you think about some of these. My first one was I went bold. I went blue flame bold right out of the gate, and I said, I think there's a possibility, and I'm going to say Kyle Hendricks will lead the team in wins. Now, it's bold, obviously, because we don't even know if he's going to throw another pitch. But is there a possibility as a number 5 starter, Kyle Hendricks piles up more wins, not a better ERA, not more innings, more wins than any other starter on this rotation?
He's your number 5 starter. The only way he's going to do that is if he's piling up more innings.
Yeah.
The only I'll give you that's an A+ on bold.
It's bold. Thank you. My middle name.
As far as
Luke
any chance in
Bold
hell
stuff.
of happening, I see the needle that would have to be thread. He'd have to be a vulture reliever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh. Now, that's a scenario I hadn't even thought
They got
of.
him at drive line trying
I just
to get
thought
his
as number 5
velocity
starter,
up
some
right
of the
now.
matchups a little bit easier.
If he were to be turn into a multi-inning guy to manage him because of whatever's going on with that shoulder, but it's enough. Like they're going to keep him healthy. It's enough that he's effective, but he can't really pile up the innings. He could be one of those first guys in out of the bullpen in a close game in the 4th, 5th, 6th inning.
And most wins, Gordon, doesn't mean best pitcher.
Right, and so that could mean a lot of wins. We've seen guys get 10 wins before out of the bullpen.
Hell, pitcher wins don't really mean anything anymore.
No, well, that's another reason I
God
said it.
damn it.
They're losing their value. So like a guy like Kyle Hendricks, even if he doesn't have the best stuff that he's ever had, which he won't. Like I think he's gotten to the point where he's not the same pitcher where he was 3 years ago.
Can I push back on that point in a modern sense, right?
Go ahead.
Not being an old man yelling at clouds, which I do plenty of.
That's my job.
In a day and age when innings are becoming like precious to get out of starting pitchers, I mean, 200-inning guys are dinosaurs.
8 last season, I think was the number.
180-inning guys are like the benchmark now for a workhorse. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So guys aren't getting decisions.
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, anybody that gets 15 wins, they're getting a ton of decisions. They're giving you innings.
They're giving you innings.
They're
That's
giving
fair.
you
That is fair.
competitive innings. So I would say in this day and age, as the pendulum swings away from guys just getting a decision in every start,
Going 7, 8, 9 innings, that kind of stuff.
if you're competitive, the fact that you're going beyond 5 and taking a lead to the late innings, man, that's more valuable than it's ever been. So, and that leads to wins. And that leads to pitching wins.
If you look at just one stat, there's always something wrong with a stat. Like
Right.
wins is a flawed stat, but
No doubt.
does. If a guy has 21 wins, likely he's had a good season.
That's fair.
that
is fair.
Likely he's had a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Even if
there's
his
guys
ERA
that
is a
don't
little
get 20.
high.
Guys that make 30-something starts and don't get 20 decisions.
It's all relative. All right, let's go with another one. So you think that one was both bold and mildly.
He gave you an A+.
You said thread a needle. He didn't give me. He said
I like that as a bold prediction, especially if you had the relief thought.
Well, I didn't, so now I add that on, and now I feel even better about it. Cody had one. Justin Steele will pitch 180 innings.
There's your workhorse.
A+ on bold.
Okay.
No effing chance.
No effing chance. Wow. Okay.
What about this one from Cody?
I mean, there's a chance. I just don't think it's a great chance.
Okay.
I mean, he's a guy that
Well, you're right. You
just
said it
because
earlier. He's
most
got to
guys
prove it,
don't.
right?
He's got to prove it. And
stay on
I'm not
field.
saying he's not capable of it. I'm not sure they'll manage him in such a way that he'll
Really?
get that.
Okay.
That's a big jump.
He went 7 innings, multiple starts.
I mean,
last
you
season.
look at like his
Right.
first couple months were slow, and then he missed the whole last month of the season, I think, with his back stuff. Like,
And then they just decided to shut him down.
yeah, so there's another whole prove it kind of.
So
factor
like,
in
yeah,
there.
he's got to stay healthy,
he had
and
even
if
6
and if he
months.
takes another step based
and-
off what we saw,
He
like
could have a great
Keep in
season and
mind,
still pitch less than
the thing
180
that people
innings.
forget about Justin Steele was he was a guy that took as long to get to the big leagues as he did, even though he was one of their more intriguing prospects because he kept getting hurt in the minors. And they did a good job of keeping him healthy the last couple of years. But that process could keep him from 180 innings.
fair.
But if he comes in and he's just lights out, then he's going to be efficient too. That's where you'll get your 180.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I just think that, I feel like the next step for him is to stay on the field and just be consistent, because I thought from June until they shut him down, he was very consistent. So if he does that in April and May, I think that there's a possibility that, I think a fair line would be 150, kind of like you said.
Like 160 might be the over-under.
Right.
But
if
it's
he
a good
if he's
balance
better
of
than what
both.
we expect, then 180.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you can not like what we saw last year.
Right. I'm with you. I think that he's one of the more exciting guys in the rotation.
No
Right
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. He could be their best pitcher. They got the two free agent veterans at the top end, and Hendricks, who may or may not come in and slot in somewhere. But he could be, and maybe on paper he is their best starter going in. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's got that kind of ability.
Yeah.
that he
Ever
could-
since John Lester said, pound the fastball early,
Right.
changed the whole season. What about Cody's other one? Seiya Suzuki makes the All-Star team. Now, the last one, I would say Cody had a really nice mix of bold and slightly possible, only because I think the number is very high in baseball this year. 180 is a lot. If you would have gone 200, that would have been too bold, because if only 8 guys in baseball hit 200 innings, that's too bold. But you brought that number back like Vegas, just a little bit to get some action on it.
Hey, but before we go on to the next one, by the way, that 180 and 200 inning thing is kind of interesting, because we already saw a downward trend in innings pitched by guys before the pandemic. Then the pandemic comes, and coming off of that season, everybody was limited in 2021. Then they had the lockout and the short spring training. So some guys, their numbers went back up, but they limited them again on purpose, workload management. This will be the key year to find out if
Finally
this is
a normal offseason.
if this is, it'll be interesting to see if that 8 goes up or at least stays the same.
Yeah.
Right.
I would lean to believe that maybe that would go up, just because I don't think as many pitchers will be limited at the beginning of the year. Because remember in April we were sitting here like
5 innings seems
five
good.
innings seems really good for
It's
how
5 innings.
fast they did that spring training and everything.
Conspiracy
This is
theory.
like the first
But-
normal offseason.
Conspiracy
couple
theory, if
years.
a guy doesn't pitch 6 innings, you don't have to pay him as much either.
Well, there's some of that. Here's the other thing though too. Like, let's go pre-pandemic, right? 2019. How many guys are left from 2019 that are workhorses, that are traditional workhorses?
Your Scherzers and
Yeah,
and
but
the world,
Scherzer's at an age now where his
Yeah.
workload's going to be
well, it's been declining for like a good decade now, as far as just overall
Right,
pitchers that can go 200 plus innings. It's always been. I remember looking at the stat, and it was like, I think quadruple or 5 times the amount of pitchers a decade ago had actually thrown close to 200 innings.
And there's more teams now that are entertaining legitimate 6-man rotations too. That's hard to do, but when you don't expect as many innings out of guys, you can find more guys that can throw you 4 innings. And if you got a 6-man rotation, you might be able to make that work with a 13-man pitching staff.
Well, now if you have a good bullpen as far as multi-inning guys, like the Cubs have with Keegan and Adbert Alzolay.
Everybody has to have the multi-inning guys now. Everybody has to have 2 or 3 of those guys.
But we debated a lot last year on this podcast during the season. At what point does that Keegan Thompson role of a guy that you can throw in there for 3-4 innings multiple times a week, at what point does that role, that pitcher being very good at it, Keegan Thompson, become more valuable to an organization than maybe the 4 or the 5 starter? Like, is it only the 5 starter that he's more valuable with, or is he less valuable? I think he's starting to creep up to where he's just as valuable, if not more valuable, than your 5th starter.
Well, I'll address that by calling bullshit on Rossi. Can I say bullshit?
You can say whatever you
we
want.
say worse. It's
Bullshit,
been worse
whatever
things
you
been
want.
said on this podcast.
Because
Cody just said it again.
Early last year, look, Rossi wasn't wrong. He just was trying to push back on the questions about early in the season. Keegan Thompson was pitching so well out of the pen in that multi-inning role, sometimes 4 innings at a time.
Yeah.
That he looked like one of their best starters. Why aren't you going to put him in a rotation? Why aren't you? Well, having him be able to pitch 2 innings 3 times a week is more valuable than. No, it's not. Do the math. If he can go, if he's a 5 or 6 inning pitcher, even in a 5-man rotation,
You're covering more innings.
you're getting more innings covered. And if they're the same quality, then that's more valuable. But to your point, and the multi-inning guy, if a guy's got the stuff to be a starter, then even a mediocre starter can get through the order once. That's a multi-inning guy, right? Mm-hmm. So the multi-inning guy, everybody has him. Everybody needs him because guys are pitching fewer innings in the rotation.
Well, and the bullpen's now at 13, like permanently. That's your max number of pitchers too.
And so
Bullpen.
So you need him. He's valuable that way. And if he's really, really good at that role, he's really valuable that way. But if he's that friggin' good, let him go through the order twice. Stick him in a rotation.
All right.
But and I think that's what we saw as where when they finally did put Keegan in the rotation, he didn't have the success that he did
didn't.
out of the bullpen. And that's where we kind of get the idea. It was like, well, you could still give him shots at the rotation, spot starts, whatever it is, because in spurts he was really good. He had some good starts, but he also had some bad ones. But at least you know that, like, if you keep him in the bullpen, he had a lot of success in that role last year.
And he can always go back to that role as a starter for one game, but you just don't let him go 6 innings.
So this isn't about philosophically whether that role is more valuable than the other role. It's about whether that suits him best.
Yeah, it's where does that specific player fit best?
He might fit best in that role, and then he's a weapon.
Yeah, no, that's why I've been at is like, and I know Luke and Cody earlier in the season kind of were pushing for him to go in the rotation, and I was kind of on the side. Yeah, and you were, and I
wanted to see it was that season was all about exploration of finding out what you got.
I agree.
So why not find out if he can be a starter?
And I kind of came
bad
on
the Cubs pitching staff was in the first half of the year. You're like, why aren't they just doing it?
And I came onto that opinion later, like a little later than these two, because I did like him out of the bullpen. I liked seeing him go that 2 2/3, 3 innings, whatever it was, every freaking time he went out there. And then I got on the train of, okay, give him a shot in the rotation, especially once all the injuries were wearing that depth down. And they didn't have quite the success. And that's where I'm like, okay, like at least you have a bullpen guy. You have a good multi-inning guy out of the bullpen. And then he's still young enough and the team still has enough question marks that you could kind of still try him out and try him out in that starter role if need be. But at least you have a spot where he has success.
All right, so here we go. One more bold one, then we're going to talk Devers after a quick ad read. Ryan had Dansby Swanson topping 35 home runs as his bold prediction.
It's bold. It's bold.
What are you?
Or you could go. Is that bolder than Jared saying Cody Bellinger will hit at least 30? I don't think that's
Bellinger's hit 40-something before.
Yeah.
Bellinger's hit over 30 multiple times.
Dansby Swanson over 35. Now, if it had been...
Well, I had that or I had a Cubs starter to throw a no-hitter.
Which I don't think is as bold because a no-hitter. You'd have to go the distance.
Who would that have to be?
That's why I was
Stroman.
I was going to lean Stroman because he had one start where he was like almost through 7, no hit.
Tyone, Stroman.
But even he said himself after that start that the way he pitches to a lot of contact, ground balls. He's not blowing balls past guys. that makes it tougher to throw a no-hitter because any ball that gets put in play has a chance of getting through.
Wesneski.
But Alec Mills did it that one time.
Alec Mills did do it.
Wesneski do it for 6 and strut
your
off the
bold
mound.
prediction would have been Kyle Hendricks.
Oh.
Because if he's back to full health and doing what he's done
And has more wins than anybody on the staff.
and has more wins, he was a guy that would have those stretches where he would be, dominant for a month.
Yeah.
And then he'd have a couple of 8-9 inning starts.
Yeah. Well, I also did make like 23 predictions on our site, allchgo.com. And one of those was just Kyle Hendricks to throw a complete game. I'm like, man, I'll just take it a step further and make him my no-hitter pick. Mm-hmm. Complete game into a no-hitter. They're both so well. I guess all no-hitters are complete games. So we'll give Kyle that.
That explains a lot. I saw a cannabis shop around the corner
That's
here
right.
when I was walking up to the.
Eva Wax 73 says, "What are you smoking, Ryan? And give me some."
No.
All right, Cody, do you have a DraftKings pick of the week for us, Mr. Del Mendo?
Mizzou plays tonight, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually going to take Mizzou plus 7.5, but that's not my DraftKings pick of the week. My DraftKings pick of the week is Providence plus 5 at home tonight against UConn. UConn coming off a close loss to Xavier. Xavier pretty good, ranked number 18 in the AP poll this week. Providence, they're a tough team to beat at home. Plus, I think they're 4-0 in the Big East start the year, and now UConn, number 4 UConn coming into their house. I think Providence hangs around. I don't know if they win, but I think they hang around, lose by 1 or 2 possessions.
Hey, who do you have winning the Pac-12 football championship next year? Washington.
Washington looks like a good team that could do it. Penix coming back.
Is USC still on
Gordon's looking to throw some cash
Washington?
down. I see what's happening.
I would rather root for Washington than any of those other teams.
I mean, USC has the Heisman winner coming back, but they also
Bo
make
Nix at Oregon.
every opposing offense look like they've got a Heisman winner.
Yeah, USC looked like it. That was probably that started off a very bad beat of for 2023 for me was USC -2 the other day, up 2 touchdowns and under 5 minutes to go, and they lose to Tulane. I don't even know where Tulane is, Gordon.
Only one way to go.
Louisiana.
What the hell?
I was thinking the same thing.
I guess Louisiana.
And there was a safety involved in that comeback.
A safety in a game that was full of offense.
What Bears player played at Tulane?
Best player to play at Tulane?
What Bears player, running back?
Was that Forte?
I think Forte's
He
Tulane.
might have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let it be known
wrong,
that
but I think that's what
let
it
it be
was.
known that Cody made the Mizzou pick of the week. Mizzou plus 7.5 tonight against Arkansas. I usually do that every week, but
Very good. Hey, guys, Game Time is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. If you've ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you'd never thought you could, 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate, behind Gordon Wittenmyer, floor seats at a concert, it's possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you never thought you could buy. You won't find a better deal this season on Bulls tickets created by the fans for the fans, guaranteeing the lowest price. If you love CHGO, well, then you're going to love Game Time, and the best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events. All right, let's get to it because I know we got
Hey, wait, can I ask a
15
question?
minutes left. Yeah.
We were talking about something earlier, and I saw somebody, one of the texters, talk about the shift. And
For Hosmer? Was it about Hosmer?
It was about Hosmer, but I got this fascinating question because, well, to me, I can't get this out of my mind, right? The shift goes away next year, and after all the biblical losses and deciding to make Hoyer sell off the whole damn team and non-tender Schwarber
Wheelbarrows of cash.
With all those wheelbarrows of cash.
Wheelbarrows of cash that I don't know where they wound up. But anyhow.
On Clark Street, man.
I mean, take a look at, forget Chris Bryant. He's gone. But look at some of the guys they got rid of. Now, with the shift going away, had you extended, I know what Javi did. Don't come at me on Javi Baez. I know what kind of year he had. I still think, and some of the people in baseball think, had he stayed in Chicago, he would have had a better year. And we'll see if he rebounds. I don't know if he will. But they came within a few days of having a contract done with him when the pandemic shut down things. Had they extended him and Rizzo and kept Schwarber, those 3 guys, with the shift going away.
Oh, yeah, especially with the shift going
How
away.
valuable would those guys be? And had they been able to get those deals done on market deals, now we know what happened with Rizzo and feeling like, he felt like he was lowballed and the whole thing. But had they been able to keep those guys, even if it cost them a little more than what some of the guys are now. By the way, Javi wouldn't have cost them any more than Detroit paid him. It would have been a couple more years, but at that same rough rate.
Yeah.
How good could those guys be?
Well, some
with
people
no
still
shift?
want
Yeah.
some people still want Javi now to be Cubs to go trade for him to put him at third base.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's the worst.
get him on a
I've
really-
just said all along that of all the deals that have been done, losing DJ LeMahieu for a bucket of baseballs was the worst deal that.
Thank
Theo
you.
made. But the second worst thing they did probably was choosing Quintana over Verlander, and then
But that was a calculated risk
yes.
that made sense at the
Just didn't
time.
work
But the
out.
one that didn't make sense for me of all the guys, like I don't have a problem with moving on from the guys because it wasn't working. You had to do something different. Letting Schwarber walk away for nothing, knowing that the shift was probably going to, makes no sense to me.
Well,
Like,
100%. And it
Schwarber was
was
the
only
big mistake.
frigging money.
Yeah.
Now, you can say whatever you want, but they're the Chicago friggin' Cubs. It was $8 million. Not only that, $8 million was under market value
Collada
for
is
that
on
guy.
set.
He
Yes.
went on
He
the
made
market
10.
and got 10.
Yep.
Schwarber was the big mistake, and he's the guy that you could still put at DH every day. Your left-handed bat, power hitter, all the things they still need. Kyle Schwarber.
What's he done in 2 years? He's got to the playoffs both years. He's made an all-star team both years. He led the league in home runs, and he played in the World Series.
and was
Yeah.
a great clubhouse guy as well.
And then
Great
you mentioned the
clubhouse guy.
shift
Yeah.
2 years ago. If that shift is gone 2020, does he even have as bad of a season as he does?
Right.
Probably not, right? He probably gets that arbitration deal
What
or
is-
an extension.
I'm not going to say he's going to turn into a 300 hitter next year, but with
gonna-
the shift going away,
That
he's
batting
going to
average
get
has to
more
go up.
base hits.
Yeah.
The amount of 110
And he's
mile per hour
already a
engine velocity.
high on base guy.
Schwarbino.
Schwarber.
I think he could hit like 260, 270.
And if
Which would
he
be
hits
insane for
260,
him.
270, that's like a 380 on base.
Yeah.
that's really good.
Me and
That'd be
Luke
really good for him.
especially have been set. We still can't get over the Schwarber thing.
The Schwarber thing.
and
is
everyone
one-
in the chat continues to say, "Oh, he hit 202."
I know they
It's
made
like-
offers to all the other guys,
make any
and
sense.
sometimes you look at them and go, well, some of these
Yeah.
were good deals, and that, yes, the Cubs offered. Schwarber, they let walk away for nothing.
And by the way, what's the other rule change that came into play after they let him go?
Bigger bases.
The DH in the National League.
That's what I'm saying. They knew that was coming.
Yeah.
They knew that was
Man.
coming.
Also, before we get into the question you're about to ask, per our friend Jesse Rogers, Eric Hosmer in agreement with the Cubs.
First
you
reported
go.
by
There you
Marcus
It's
Stroman.
officially official.
First tweeted by Marcus Stroman.
First tweeted by Margaret Stroman.
All right, so we've had a lot of people in the chat asking what you think of Rafael Devers. John Heyman today tweeted that Devers' discussions with the Red Sox about a multi-year possibility said to be, quote, unquote, steady, and that Devers wants 300 plus. Do you see any path for the Cubs to a Devers trade? Because obviously he's a great fit, in my mind, a great fit at third base for what they're looking for.
Before you answer, please let me down
You asking me?
slowly. Yeah, we're asking
Yeah.
you. Before you answer, please let me down slowly. Don't do it hard. Just let me down slowly. Okay. Go ahead.
You sure you want to hear this?
I'm ready. I'm ready to be heard again. So go ahead.
It makes no sense.
Oh, it makes no sense to you?
I think it makes no sense. Look, the player he is, absolutely.
Good player.
Absolutely. If he can't get an extension with the Red Sox because he's asking for that much money, the only other team that deals with their guys on extensions like that is the Cubs. The big market, big resource team that can't get deals done, then the guy goes somewhere else and signs a big deal. So if this is a Mookie Betts situation, he's not Mookie Betts. He's
Yeah,
really,
I think they made a mistake
really
on Mookie
friggin'
Betts if you look at
good.
it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. But you trade for him and you give up a lot of player capital.
That's
Then
the
you
problem.
turn around and pay him free agent money. What player capital are you going to give up? You just got rid of your whole damn core to get anything at all in the farm system.
Yeah.
So what are you going to give up for him just to turn around and pay him what you're going to have to pay him on the free agent market? I don't see it.
I think the only guys that are worth something like that, if you're going to do it, and we've had the debate about Ohtani trying to get, obviously you have to get a long multi-year deal done if you were to make that trade with any of these guys. But whether it
Right.
was Soto talking about that deal or Ohtani or
Soto had 2 more years
Soto
of club
is the one
control.
that's one that's a
After
little
the
bit
year
different.
that they traded for him.
It's a little little bit different.
He's in a walk year.
I wasn't really on it. I've said Ohtani, but only because he fills 2 spots on your roster. And he's
The problem
so
with any
outrageously good.
trade of a superstar or a superstar in the making or a guy of that value is you got to empty your farm system again.
Yes.
For one guy.
And they have a good farm system. They don't have
That's the
number one farm
opposite of
system.
everything they've told us they're doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't think the fact that if it does go into July and he's on that roster and the Red Sox are bad, you don't think that that whatever team would trade for him wouldn't have to give up major prospects just because he would be a rental?
But at that point, it's probably not the Cubs in this position to do it.
It's a team trying to win the World Series.
The teams that are going to be in the market for him then, and we've seen this play out, there's urgency at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And urgency creates, especially if there's more than one team involved, which there almost certainly would be if he's having the kind of year we think he will, urgency creates high prices.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and again, a team that does it then, now maybe they'll be looking, maybe it'll be a team that just does it as a rental, but they're all in if they're doing it.
Right.
And anybody else is going to be looking to.
I just think
And
that
then- well,
I
and
just
then
think
at
the
that
asking
point-
price actually comes down
But
the longer that
I
it
don't
pans
think-
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's true.
I don't know if that's true. I don't think
think
that's
so?
true.
I don't think that's true, but I also think at that point, Devers is 2 months away from free agency. He's not signing an extension unless you're giving him a ton of money to do it.
Well, it depends on where he goes.
It depends on where he goes and how much money he gets.
And you can negotiate. Part of the deal is like give us a couple days to talk to him, if you wanted to do that. But or you could be like the Cardinals do this all the time, right? They'll go make the big trade, and then the guy plays there and he loves it and he signs an extension.
Yeah, that happens.
Holiday, Edmonds.
He's of course he's
Arenado,
not.
Arenado doesn't opt out of his deal somehow.
Goldschmidt.
He wouldn't be leaving a place though that people would be like, oh yeah, he didn't like his time there, and then he got to Wrigley and was like, whoa, look at this place. He'd be coming from Boston. It's also a very nice place to play baseball.
Right. And if the Cubs are in on a deal like that, it's because they're winning.
Yeah.
It's because they're winning big. And if he comes over, that would be a place that he would want to. But again, you're giving up so much in player capital, and then you're going to turn around and give up, a 9-figure extension.
Well, as people are saying in the chat, the Cubs haven't given even $200 million yet.
Right.
If he's trying to get $300 million, that just historically is out of character for the Cubs.
Yeah.
And depending on the years, we know we've talked to Jed, we could just know the mentality in the front office is like more money, less years, versus less years, more money.
Well, except that we've seen him do this before too.
Yeah.
Where the Darvish contract was a 5-year deal until the last minute, and they added a 6th year to lower the AAV on the deal. And that's what everybody's doing with these 10 and 11.
Everybody.
And
it's
14-year
crazy.
deals. Everybody's doing. Nobody expects to get 10 years out of anybody.
But that's why the Swanson deal made a little bit more sense in the grand scheme of things when you look back at it, is 7 years versus 12 made a little more sense for what this front office is kind of looking at.
Right.
Not that the money was a big difference in money.
He's still a
do the
good
math
player,
for
and
me.
it's the
What's
most
the AAV
affordable
on that?
deal.
That was like $27 million,
27
I think, a year.
So with a different team in that marketplace, that's a 10-year deal at $250. Roughly over $250.
Something like that.
Which is probably where he would have fallen. If he followed the marketplace as it played out with those other guys, and again, nobody's expecting to get more than the 177 value.
Yeah.
They just know that they're just getting the AAV they want.
Yeah.
I think the part about trying to get this next great player via trade, whether you were talking about Soto, Ohtani, Devers, is the Cubs farm system, while we're all excited that they've replenished it and it's better, again, remember, the farm system is not what they were saying it was going into like 2014-15. We've heard that they aren't
multiple top 10
We're not. Jed has said
prospects.
these are not superstar prospects necessarily. Like there were when you saw Bryant and guys, you were like, this guy has superstar potential. They haven't gone out and said that about this group, and they're not the number one farm system. Like they're not like the Dodgers, who are just churning out guys one after one. That's the place you want the Cubs to get to, so that they can make deals like this. Right,
You want the Dodgers. You want them to get to where the Dodgers are, where they're spending the money they're making,
and their farm system's
and
cranking.
they're good enough at developing.
But they haven't been developing those guys. So
people are excited because they have anybody in the farm system.
That's right.
Well, that's what
there's
I
a lot
mentioned
of
on the
potential,
show.
but
they
the ones
got
with
potential.
the ones with the most potential, you feel like are still at least a year.
And you still got Alcantara that just got hurt, and you got Miguel Amaya who's been their top catching prospect forever, and he gets hurt every year. Braylon Marquez was electric. Now he's back. They DFA'd him and brought him back because nobody picked him up. And then Ed Howard, their first round draft pick, the local kid who was really exciting, especially as a defensive guy at that in the middle infield. He's got a long way back from that injury.
Well, and then going back to just developing the prospects, I mentioned it on the show yesterday that if you want one guy to develop in a star that's on this team right now, it's probably Justin Steele, because if he can turn into, he's probably not going to reach Scherzer, Verlander level ace, but if he can turn into your very good number one, that's because those guys make a ton of money. That saves you money in that position, and you can go spend that on other areas. Because if you do get to a position where you're the Dodgers, you have a lot of these guys coming up. The place you don't want to spend a ton of money on, and what we figured out with the Cubs this last run of success, is you don't want to have to spend all your money on pitching. So if a guy like Justin Steele can turn into your very, very good number one, get to the playoffs, you're comfortable with him in that number one spot.
Under control,
that helps you a lot with long-term money and where you can spend
I'll take it a step further. If he becomes that guy, you don't mind paying him. You don't mind paying him to extend him. I'll tell you what, I've thought forever, doing MVP ballots over the years, I've thought the most dominant starting pitcher in baseball, especially if he's giving you a bunch of innings, is probably by definition the most valuable player in the league almost every year. And I go back to remembering Randy Johnson with those Mariners teams. He once won 20 games. I think he went something like 20-2, and they finished with something like 90 wins. That's 18 games over 500.
Yep.
He's the difference. There's replacement value, right, that would be worth something.
Yeah.
But the difference between them being a playoff team and not a playoff team was literally him.
Yeah. And
you could measure it. And not to mention what he did for attendance on the days he pitched and things like that. But by definition, it's the most valuable. So it's hard. So just from on a ballot standpoint, I discounted that fact because of the Cy Young Award, so anyway, the point is that thought process led me to that conclusion, and I still think that's the case, especially if the guy gives you 32 starts a year, and these days 6+ innings, but 7+ innings is tremendous.
Yeah.
That's the most valuable guy on your team.
Yeah, well, because that's what you mentioned as far as you don't mind paying him at that point. That's also you don't have to go out and buy someone else, probably for a higher market price than what you could give Justin Steele for an extension.
No doubt. I mean, if you could put that guy at the front of and he stacks up. I mean, how many real aces are there in the game? 10, maybe
max.
Right.
Maybe?
So we talked about the extension
thing.
I don't know when that. We talked about an extension last week. I said I don't know what if
Probably
he turned out to be really good. When would be too soon, or do you never consider because of his age the extension? And I think what you're saying, like if he's good enough, he shows you again this year. Signing him to an extension, if you feel comfortable with him, why not?
It depends. You
do have him for control.
The health volatility is a big thing.
Yes.
And I'm not just saying him because of his track record. I'm saying pitchers in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're counting on him to be that front of the rotation guy and getting all that out of him.
But because of his age, you're not going to pay him the massive amount that some of the other guys.
That's what I'm saying. So Kyle Hendricks took the money, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he might have made more as a free agent. I would argue that he would have.
Yeah, probably would have.
Had he naturally gone to free agency.
But he wanted to be here, and he wanted some
a deal
security.
Like that, sure.
Yeah, the way I look at it from the Cubs' perspective, he's still pre-arb for another 2 seasons, so it's probably too early to look at it.
I think it's definitely too early. You see what he does this year, and you start to have those internal discussions.
Yeah. We got 2 minutes left. What happens with Correa? And did the Cubs avoid a total disaster? If they were, we heard that they never made an actual offer, right?
Right.
So
they pivoted. They pivoted the week of the winter meeting to Swanson, like fully. my thing on this is, that ankle thing, leg thing with the plate in it, he got it banged on a play this year, and he talked openly about it to media. So he's not hiding it. The Twins gave him a contract last year and still made him a 10-year offer this year. They would have done a physical on him last year. They would have known him better as well as probably just about anybody. So I think he's going to wind up staying with the Mets. But I think that Twins contract out there, they offered $10 and $285, knowing his history. Yes. And I think that's a nice fallback position for him.
It's just the craziest thing I've seen. Yeah. Like, it's just so bizarre. I mean, the Bears had a player that they offered a D tackle, and then he failed his physical. He ends up with Pittsburgh. But, like, this is a premier guy, like one of the top 2 or 3 guys, right?
Yeah, but he's also a guy that you project over the course of that contract probably doesn't stay at shortstop. Maybe he goes to third like he played in the World Baseball Classic, and maybe even eventually at first base as a valuable clubhouse guy and bat.
I think it's crazy. We're sitting here a month later from when he had first agreed to that contract with the Giants, almost a month, and he still hasn't signed with a different team.
I know. Ed is the craziest thing I've seen in a long time in free agency.
And if he ends up not signing with the Mets, what will they do? What's their next move after that? Yeah, what would the Mets do if they walk away from it?
Francisco Lindor.
I'm just saying, but they also want to have a super team.
Third base prospect.
Well, then they'll go pick up somebody at the deadline or something. I don't know.
Steve Cohen has money.
Yeah.
All right.
We had fun. Gordon, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Good to see you. And we hope to have you back sometime very soon. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Good chat today. And thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. We will see you back here on Thursday, 1:20. Until then, fly the W.